بسم الله والحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله أما بعد السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Welcome to another episode of Sending the Community with me, Hafiz Muhammad Umar. And in today's show, I am delighted to be joined by Lucy Toghill, who is the Education Manager at Tourettes Action. Welcome to you again, Lucy.
Thank you for having me. It's lovely to be here.
And thank you so much, and I say welcome again because our listeners will recall Lucy very kindly took the time to join us last year as well in raising awareness of Tourette's. And Tourette's Action are involved in the Tourette's Awareness Month, which started last week on the 15th of May and continues until 15th of June. But we know that Tourette's is a lifelong condition, and just because after 15th of June we are not doing as much, the condition won't go away. But this is really to give it high profile, and part of today's show will be dedicated, certainly the first half anyway, purely around tracks, what it is, what are the early symptoms, and how parents or carers who have any concerns can do more to ensure that the young person manifesting those symptoms can be fully supported. We will come back to that very, very shortly. Also, later in the show today, I will be joined by Aleha Muktadir. She is the early years practitioner and director of First Steps Nursery in Luton. She will be talking about the significance of getting a diagnosis of any special education need or a disability from a young age, particularly from nursery upwards. She has excellent advice for parents, carers, and also for professionals, to look out for those early signs to try and ensure children are fully supported from a very young age. And then the final part of the show will be dedicated to the SENsational Event, which was organized by two primary care networks here in Luton, or ACEs, and equality. And this event was put on at Wigmore Church in Luton, particularly for parents and carers who have children with special education needs and disabilities. So you will get to listen to some of the participants and attendees to that event later in the show as well. And also, please bear in mind that disability cricket continues at Luton Town Indians Cricket Club each Monday evening from 6 till 7. And our two big events to look forward to are the first one is on 25th of June at Lord's Cricket Club, where England disability team will be playing India, and we have been invited to attend that to watch. If you are interested, please get in touch with me at Luton Town Indians Cricket Club before the end of this month, so we can try and get you to attend that with us as a club. And secondly, our biggest cricket event of the year is scheduled for Sunday, the 3rd of August, at our main home ground, Luton Town Indians Cricket Club at Warden Park, where we will be hosting the England disability team, who will be playing a T20 match in the morning, and in the lunch break, our own disability team will be playing against Buckinghamshire, and in the afternoon there will be a memorial cricket match with our club 11 playing Luton Town Football Club in a friendly cricket match. So that's all happening, and we will be doing more on disability tennis and disability athletics as well as disability rugby in the coming weeks. So back to today. And Lucy, thank you so much for bearing with me whilst I was making those announcements. And in today's show, because the first part is around Tourette's, Lucy, could you tell us what Tourette's is, please?
Okay, Tourette syndrome is an inherent neurological condition. It's actually classified as an official disability, although many of our community don't feel disabled by their condition. And the key features of that are involuntary tics.
Yeah. So when we say tics, what do we mean then?
Well, we can have two parts to tics. One is a vocal tic, and that can be a sound, it can be a grunt, a sniff, it can be a word, it can be whole sentences as well. Or we can have motor tics, and that's anything that creates.
Sorry, Lucy, I've lost you there. I think the connection has been disrupted. Lucy, can you hear me now? Can
Sorry,
you hear me
Mohammed,
now?
Yeah, the connection's a
Yes.
bit bad on my end.
So
Yeah.
you was telling us about the two different types of ticks. Sorry, I lost you again. Now you're back. Go ahead, Lucy. Try again. Listeners, this is a pre-recorded show, and because we are meeting online, I do apologize for any interruption with the network here. Lucy is very kindly telling us about the two different types of ticks. Lucy, I can see you now. Have a go again, please. Oh, I think the whole thing has paused. Let me pause this.
So there are two types of ticks. We have vocal ticks, which are anything that makes a sound, really. Anything from a grunt, a sniff. It can be words and it can be whole sentences as well. And then we have motor tics, which is anything that creates a movement. So that could be facial grimacing, it could be eye blinking, shoulder shrugging, and a lot more complex ones with whole body tics as well.
Okay. So for our listeners out there, parents, carers, or professionals, if they notice these symptoms in a child or a young person, what should they do?
Well, first protocol I would say is always GP. Now, there's
Hmm.
still a lot of a lack of understanding within GPs as well. So they would usually, hopefully, either refer to a pediatric neurologist, because it would be good to rule out other things as well, like epilepsy and things like that. Or they can refer to CAMS, and usually a psychiatrist there will diagnose. And of course, people can look on the website. We have lots of information about how to gain a diagnosis and how to go about that. And we have lists of NHS specialists and private specialists as well, people can turn to.
So two things you mentioned there. Firstly, to refer to the GP,
Mm.
um, and they would be able to perhaps make a referral to CAMS. CAMS, for our listeners, if you're not familiar with Basic Child and Adolescent Mental Health Service, they do a lot of amazing work. And secondly, the website Lucy has referred to is the Tourette's Action website. If you go into any search engine, type in Tourette's Action, and it comes up as the first option in my system anyway. Or you can go to www.tourettes, that's spelled Tourettes hyphen action.org.uk. So tourettes-action.org.uk. And there is lots and lots of help and support available there. We will try and explore part of that website during the part of this show as well. Um, so, what can people expect from the GP then? Um, Once they've taken the child to the GP, I know they could make it for into CAMS. What else can they do?
It's a bit of there's no one diagnostic pathway. There's no NHS nice guidelines, unfortunately. It's a bit of a postcode lottery. Um, if a GP can send us to a specialist, that's the best way, through neurology. And hopefully we can rule out any other things like, as I said, epilepsy. It's a bit of an elimination process with Tourette syndrome because you can't see it on a brain scan. So it's just about ruling out other things as well. Yeah, and hopefully, GPs will have that knowledge and understanding about Tourette's as well in the first instance.
Hmm. Um, and in a school environment, then, so if a class teacher is concerned, I guess they can speak to the parents. But from a school's perspective, what else can they do?
Well, I mean, you can always do a neurodevelopmental pathway referral. Some schools have access to that. Some schools can even refer to CAMS, actually, and that could be a quicker pathway. But there's lots of strategies and adjustments we can have in the classroom. Would you like me to talk about that
Yes,
specifically?
please.
Well, I think first and foremost, what we try to do for a child is to normalise this in the classroom. It's like any condition, it's about learning, it's about educating others. We do lots of training in schools. That's something that people might want to access from our website. And we do lots of resources to educate children as well, in terms of class assembly resources and class talks. But the strategies we tend to go down the route of is to ignore tics in the first instance, where possible. Obviously, there may be safeguarding concerns around some tics, but Tourette's is so suggestible. The more we ignore it, the better it will be for the child. If we pay attention to it, even in a positive way, it can reinforce those tics. So it's about ignoring and distraction. Distraction is going to be the key, really.
Excellent. And those resources Lucy's talking about are absolutely amazing. I mean, as a Senko, I first reached out to Lucy about 5 years ago. And when I first came across a young person in the school, I was a Senko at the time. And we weren't really sure. I will admit, even as a Senko, I wasn't really too sure on how to best support the young person. And those resources, I think they came in two different types. One was for the child to look at how they could best support themselves. And there was part of that particular presentation for the rest of the peer group to be able to fully support them. And the second part was for teachers and how they could support the young person and how they could better understand the condition. So those resources are absolutely amazing. So if there are any professionals listening out there thinking, you know what, in my school I've got some concerns, please go to Tourette Action website and see if you could get those resources. I think there was a free login that I had created, if I'm not mistaken, or drop an email to the contact us section and they will be able to share those resources with you. And then in terms of raising profile of the condition itself within a school environment, I guess the next point of call beyond the class teacher is the Senko, who would be able to liaise with outside agencies as well as with parents and carers. And a meeting would be incredibly helpful between parents, carers, the Senko, and possibly outside agencies to ensure that best support is available um, for that young person. Um, and for the wider community, I noticed there is a lot of work that Tourette Action does. Could you tell us a bit about that, please, Lucy?
Yeah, of course. I mean, we have a lot on our website. There's lots of
Mm,
support for families with people with Tourette's or Tourette's, people that have got Tourette syndrome themselves, medical professionals, education professionals. We have a fantastic newsletter that gets sent out monthly that tells you what's going on in Tourette's Action that particular month and beyond. We have support groups. We do webinars, Tick Fest events, which are fantastic. We offer monetary grants that people can apply for. Lots of information and fact sheets, as you mentioned, around diagnosis and medications and therapies and things like that. We have a fantastic help desk. As I said, do contact them because they will be able to signpost you to other agencies as well if we can't help you. But, I think it's really important to look at any free resources. We are magpies, aren't we, as teachers? No point reinventing the wheel. So it's really good to grab what we can. And of course, we do fundraising and the list goes on, to be honest.
mm, absolutely. So, listeners, if you go to the tourette's-action.org.uk website and scroll down, there is an amazing video to watch. We will play that a little bit later in the show. And also, there is an event section. If you click on that, that brings up a calendar of all the events that are taking place this month and into the next month as well. As this show is running now from 7 till 8, there is an online meeting happening. Um, it's from 7 till 8 o'clock for adults with Tourette syndrome support group. And there's another one happening on Thursday, the 22nd of May at 10 o'clock in the morning. It's a parent caregiver online coffee morning. You could join that if you want to. Then Friday at 10 o'clock in the morning, there's a question and answer drop-in session. Next Monday, Sunday, no, sorry, not Monday, the 25th at 2 o'clock. Is the Trans Action Guildford Support Group meeting. And the list goes on. So, if you just go into the events section and then you can browse through what's happening for the rest of this month. If I go into June, again, the calendar is pretty much jam-packed. There are lots and lots of activities happening. Some in different parts of the country, like the East Midlands group, are meeting on the 15th of June. And then others you can meet online regardless of which part of the country you're in. So that is something really important to bear in mind. Um, if we go back to finding support, again on the website, you can click on that. Lucy mentioned the help desk already. Online support groups we mentioned. There could be in-person support groups as well. And then the education part we talked about earlier, and employment. Um, Lucy, could you tell us a bit about what kind of support is available with employment, please, for people with Tourette's?
Yeah, I mean, we do lots of training in organisations and workplaces. We did a big one this year for the Met Police, which is fantastic because there's still a lot of misunderstanding in the police force, which is great that they're willing to learn about that. And we offer advocacy, workplaces can call us. We can have a chat about a person with Tourette's, or a person with Tourette's can talk to us about the difficulties they're having in work, and we can advise some reasonable adjustments that can be made within that workplace as well.
Yeah, brilliant. And then there's a section on benefits. Would people with Tourette's be entitled to any benefits at all?
Absolutely, yeah. It depends whether they're working or not able to work. You can have disability living allowance, you can have personal dependent payments as we get older. So it's always worth, filling out those forms and getting support with that. Your local SENDAS teams can help with that as well, which is worth mentioning. But we do have our own Tourette's Action grant that people can apply to up to £500 for a piece of equipment in the home for their child or themselves as an adult. So that's always worth applying as well.
Brilliant. Um, and then Tourette's support passport. How does that work?
So it's a pupil passport document, which is always good. And it's sort of designed to work with the child in a school environment or in any education provision, really, to talk about their exacerbators to their tics, what their triggers are, all their alleviators, what they find at home, what helps them with their tics, do they need to have a run around the playground? Do they need to put earphones in their ears and listen to some music? Whatever helps them to re-regulate. And everyone is different. Of course, we know there are certain factors that affects everyone with tics, but usually, it's worth talking to the child. And it's just a nice, many SEN children will have their own personal passports anyway, or something similar. But it's an added document just to really focus on the tics, to give that chance to build a trusted relationship with an adult as well, which I think is really important in schools.
Hmm. Um, and what are the advantages of having a Tourette's Action ID card?
So if you're going out into the community, it might be at home, it might be that you're going shopping or to a restaurant, you might be at college, you're doing a college day access course, you might be going out to a cafe with friends. Sometimes, Tourette's is very misunderstood, which brings us to our campaign this year, which we'll have a look at in a minute. But Tourette's is still very misunderstood in the community and in education provisions. So sometimes it gives people a little bit of confidence to have an ID card. They can wear it around their neck on a lanyard, or they can hand them paper versions, card versions to people if they haven't got the confidence to talk to people. And it just says that I have Tourette syndrome, please be understanding. And there's a link to the website. So it just helps you in the community.
Hmm, brilliant. And then the final part, looking at the find support section of the website on the tracts-action.org.uk, and it's tracts around the world, and there is a very long list of all the countries, from Argentina in alphabetical order, down to the USA. And there is, what that tells us, the fact that tracts isn't only limited to the UK or Europe, but actually around the world, people have the condition, and it's a condition that we shouldn't, I think, any different, and we've got to be able to normalize ourselves as well. So, lots of support there. And then about the community, I know we talked a bit earlier about the events, um, and the Tourette's Action blog. How does that work, and what are the benefits of that then?
So again, it's a community-based page where people will send us blogs, send us,
Mm,
a little bit of written or a video about their experience of Tourette's. And I think it's lovely that people can identify with like-minded people, because when you get given that diagnosis of Tourette's, it can be quite scary, and you might feel on your own.
mm,
We know that 1 in 100 children have Tourette's. There's over 300,000 people in the UK with Tourette's. So this is not a rare condition that we might think it is. In fact, it's a similar prevalence to autism, which is scary, isn't it? Because we know so much more about autism. So I think it's really nice for people to just identify with other people, which again, crosses over with the support groups, because I think to meet another person with Tourette's takes that scariness away. And, you suddenly realize, yes, you are quite normal, and there are other people with that condition.
mm. Amazing. Um, and then support available to professionals. I know we talked a bit about general employers and health professionals as well as education professionals, and then your other training offer. Uh, so, for example, for workplace training and supporting neurodiversity, how could companies get involved? What can they expect from your offer?
So we were chock-a-blocking Neurodiversity Week in
Hmm.
March. So basically, people can get in touch with us. We do have a small charge for our training, although we never turn anyone away. Certainly with schools, we know budgets are tight, and we just send a link for a donation. But there is a charge, and they can get one of myself or one of our team over Teams or Zoom. We don't attend in person, unfortunately, because we are quite a small charity, and there's not many of us that work at the charity in education. And it'll be about an hour or an hour and a half, or we can do lunch and learn sessions, which will be about 45 minutes, talking about Tourette's and other tic conditions, the co-occurring conditions that come with Tourette's. That's a big part of it. About 85% of people with Tourette's will have a co-occurring condition. So it's, again, getting an understanding of a holistic view of the struggles and the support that any person might need. Very similarly with teaching, we know that teachers don't have a lot of time. So I'd love an hour and a half of people, but usually an hour staff meeting is all they can spare. But we'll shove as much as we can in there about support for children and how we can help each other.
Brilliant. And then alongside that, the health and social care training, is that specific to employers or is that right across to all different sectors?
Different sectors of the medical profession. We do train primary care networks, interestingly
Hmm.
enough. We do
Oh,
train GPs, anyone really, social care, social care, we do children's homes. There's so many sort of places within the medical sector. Um, we anyone that will listen and would want to learn will be there.
mm, brilliant. Um, and in terms of plans beyond the Tax Awareness Month, what could people expect? If they think, oh, this month is great, there's so much going on. I feel really proud of, people learning about the condition. What about beyond 15th of June? What can people with Tourette syndrome expect there to be for them?
Well, as you know, there's lots going on in Tourette's. I mean, for myself personally, I'm chock-a-block with training, which is lovely. People always reach out. We've got a Move for Tourette's campaign where people can raise some money, lots of fundraising. In terms of schools, we have a pack that schools can apply for with lots of activities, uh, quizzes, lesson plans for all key stages, lots of fundraising ideas. We have our fantastic campaign called Misunderstood, which is a music video.
Yes. Yeah.
Do have a look at that on the website because that's
Yes.
fantastic. It's just about, as you know, raising as much awareness. We do this all year round. We do lots of campaigns all year round, but Tourette's Awareness Month is a fantastic time for everyone in the community to get together and make an effort, really.
Hmm. And do you offer any support to sports clubs at all?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean,
Hmm.
anyone within the sports community, again, if you want training or just a casual chat about any people that might have Tourette's or just a little awareness session, we'll be there. No problem at all.
Brilliant. We are now going to play that short video that Lucy just mentioned called Misunderstood. It is on the homepage of the Transaction website. So have a listen to this one, please. That's can mean a lot of things, but it's almost always misunderstood. That is the Transaction Misunderstood Awareness campaign film, which is just over 2 minutes long, and it can be viewed on www.tourettes-action.org.uk. Um, Lucy, we're coming towards the end of this part of the show now. Um, just final a few words of advice from yourself, please, for our listeners, whether they're individuals with symptoms, parents or carers, or professionals working with people with Tourette's. What would your advice be for them?
I would say be as supportive as possible, learn as much as you can. It's all about educating and understanding. Reach out to the charity. As I said, we have lots of support for all areas and we're always willing to help.
Okay. Lucy, it's been an absolute pleasure having you with us once again. Thank you so much for your time, and thank you for all the hard work you're doing.
You're welcome. Thank you very much for having me. Take care.
Yeah. I'm now joined by Sister Aleha Muktadir. Sister Aleha is an early years practitioner and director of First Steps Nursery. Assalamu alaikum and welcome to the show, Sister Aleha.
Walaikum assalam. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for joining us. Tell us a bit about yourself, please, and what your role entails at the moment.
Okay, so I qualified in the early years sector about 20 years ago, and then I became the early years professional. I got the early years professional status as well, which enabled me to go into a lot of directorship, helping the managers of nurseries and seeing the curriculum, oversighting the curriculum, making sure it's inclusive practice. And then I decided to go into a more specialist role into the how we supporting the special children with developmental delays, with special needs. So I started doing a lot of training alongside my colleagues as well in the special education needs sector as well, to understand a bit more about the different stages and approaches to support the children that have developmental delays. So with that, I came across, I was quite fortunate to go into the community. So I did a lot of family working in the community. A lot of my base, a lot of my children, my families I worked with had children with developmental needs, especially with autism. You know, obviously with autism, it's a very broad subject. You know, it's got so much elements to autism. It's not just one element. There's different levels of autism. So I'm from a Bangladesh background. I speak Bangla, so I was quite happy to go out to parents and families who speak the same language to give them that support to understand, so they can understand what is it that their child, what's happening, and how can we support the families with children with developmental delays.
Brilliant. So you said you started off as somebody who wasn't really into early years education, but you made the transition. What made you want to make the transition from nursing into early years practitioner?
Okay, so yes, I was a registered nurse before I was working at the L&D hospital, and I worked my whole career there was very much around the children ward, special babies, and I think I started getting into that. Sort of decided that the children are very special to families, and and it's something that we need to help as well, especially with the nursing aspect as well, and making sure they're feeling better. After my second daughter came along, I thought, no, I need to change my career. I need to give time to her as well. Let me change everything round. And I think because I worked in the special needs unit, I think that gave me that insight into it and something that I really wanted to do, a passion to work alongside children. So I ended up into the education sector, and that's where my whole career started, studying, making sure that I was managing nurseries. I was very fortunate in my whole employment. I've had really good managers who literally took me on straight away as a student even. And then I started putting my initiatives in place. And that's where I thought, you know what, we need a lot of inclusive practice into nurseries. I feel that's where I am. I work in nursery from birth to 5 years old. So that's where everything starts. There's the first education is, where we are. So we need to educate the children right from the beginning, give them the grounding.
No. So, I mean, for the benefit of our listeners out there, they might have heard of the Code of Practice, Note to 25, which is meant to cover special education needs and disabilities. And some of them might not fully be aware of what that means in practice. So, when a child joins your nursery, what are the early signs that you tend to look out for in order to establish whether there is the element of special education need or disability or not for a child?
Okay, so the government's initiative with the early intervention came about, and we were enabled to open a 2-year unit here as well, my own nursery. With the 2-year unit, children are coming in as early as 2, and moving on till about 3, and then they transition. We have another transition unit where they go to 3 to 5. So where the early intervention is happening, we let the children settle in. So for the first 2 weeks, 3 weeks even, they are settling into the nursery. And then slowly I start doing observations. I think with observations, you sort of realize, or you sort of track the children's level of development. And I think there's some obvious signs you can work alongside and sort of like question yourself, and then start talking to the parents as well, that this is what we are seeing. What do you see at home? And that's when I start talking to the parents as well, because obviously everything has to be consented through parents. And the whole journey then starts from there. We continue to observe children, and that's when I will then discuss my findings with the parent. I have meetings with mum and dad mostly, and say, look, this is what mum finding. How is your child at home? So the most important thing is how they finding it at home, because we don't want to go in and say, look, this is what I'm seeing, and this is what, it shouldn't be like that. You have to work with the parent. Parent partnership is so important when you are discussing their child. So that's what we do here. It's sometimes is quite hard. Parents are not going to understand what you're saying, and because every parent, that's their child, and the child is everything to them. So somebody coming from the nursery and saying, I think this is what my observations are saying. How do you feel, mom and dad? It's a big thing. I totally understand. I have parents crying. I literally have box of tissues out, and they're like, no, we don't see this. They never do come forward, and they never acknowledge anything that I'm going to say to them at the beginning. It's hard work. A parent partnership is very hard work at that point, where you say to them, well, come in, let's do observations together. So I sort of involve them a lot in the nursery. So it's not just me, because they're in denial. But saying that, they know, they always say to me, yes, Aleha, my child is very different. I always compare it with somebody else's child, and he or she is very different. Why is that? But then what I do is, yes, I know where you're coming from, but let's work together and put some grounding, some education plans in place, some targets in place, and we'll work with you and try and make the small steps for your child. But that is not easy. It takes a good 3-4 weeks to even get the parents on board. They don't want to know. They think the children is fine, and there's no problem. You're saying something that's it's alienating to them. It's not right. But I do get parents after about 3-4 weeks down the line, when I'm constantly talking to them, they do come round slowly, and they're sitting down, and then you see a wealth of information coming from them or what's going on at home. And that's where I start. Like once they start opening up, that's when I can start putting in my input and say, look, okay, so let's now work together. What can we do about this? So that's what's happened here. So early intervention is so crucial. Where you see the different signs, a child could be just sitting there lining up some cars, or not interacting with anybody, or has got no perception of, safety awareness, or just being in a little corner, just putting hands over his head, his ears, doesn't want to hear the sounds. These are little triggers, and these are little things that we sort of pick up and think, okay, something is triggering, something is to be done. Let's carry on and observe and see what's going on. Unfortunately, we used to have a lot of funding, and local authority. Funding is difficult. So to get the funding to get one-to-one is very hard. You need a lot of input to even qualify for that. So that's where work comes in. So my work, I then liaise with the local authority, and we get assigned a sense team. At the moment, I work with Sophie Conquest, which is a part of my area, the Biscot area. So she will then come in and work with me and give me, it's that second opinion. She's the specialist. She will come in and say, okay, this is what I'm seeing. We do joint observations, and I think we need individual tracking plans put in place, and let's work with the parents. And that's where the whole starts with those children.
And from your perspective, then, how are the parents responding to that over the last, say, a few years? Are they a bit more accepting of the fact that they should access this help? Are there still unforeseen barriers between what your findings are and what the parents' own perspective of this child might be?
It's always, there's always going to be a barrier. It's that the parents are never going to acknowledge there's a problem. I mean, I do have some parents who are like fantastic, and they're like, okay, just give us all the help you want. We're there, we help you, we'll do whatever. But there's, I think, 80% of our parents who are still thinking no. It's a stigma in this cultural society that we're in. I've worked with a lot of Bangladeshi community, and it's that stigma. The firstborn is their son. And what are you telling me? He's not right. That can't be true. Parents will sit here, cry, and they know what I'm saying is correct, but it's very hard for them to even take that on board. I mean, in my employment here, the journey here, it's been so hard. I've had parents threatening me, like, no, it's not true. Okay, if it's true, what medicine can I give? They want an answer. They want this fix straight away. No, it doesn't work like that. You have to sit down, and and it is so hard. There is always going to be a barrier. But
I think I just want to also reiterate the fact that you are talking so passionately about the Bangladeshi community because, as you said earlier, that's your heritage, but it's not limited to Bangladeshi community. I think whether Luton is such a diverse town, and so I find that within our wider Asian and Black community as well, where we carry these stigmas, whether you're Pakistani, Indian, Bangladeshi, Afghani, Nigerian, Somalian, Eritrean, or even from the Middle East, there is this unforeseen taboo that comes with special education needs and disabilities. There are some, as you say, that, mashallah, fully understand this, and this is from Allah, and they fully accept it. Others think perhaps, is there some foul play here? Is there an element of black magic? Is there some involvement of jinnat? Is there something else that we can get a quick fix for? And we know that it's not about fixing, it's about understanding, valuing, appreciating the difference and working with that for difference for how it best suits the young person. So I just wanted to make sure that it's not just our Bangladeshi brothers and sisters who
no. Yeah.
Unity.
Yeah, it's not just the Bangladesh. I'm just saying it because I've dealt with a lot of Bangladeshi families, but it's over. A lot of different cultures as well. At the moment, I'm working with children from Africa, African origin. We've had Somalian. I've got Arab parents here, and again, it's different. throughout, all the parents are different, all the children are different, the cultural beliefs are different, even though, like you just said, something about black magic. I mean, I've had, just right now, I'm working with a family and parents are taking this child away back, to the back home, Pakistan, and the origin, and they want to do some work with the child because the child, they think he's got some sort of possessive powers over him, and they think, no, it's not that at all. But end of the day, you have to work alongside the parents, no matter what you're saying to them. If that's what they are deciding, that's what they're going to do. So,
and I think that a degree of education is so important for them to get the help to understand each condition, and the fact that this is quite common and it is normal to have a condition, and help them to see the wider society and that exists around them. Sister Aleha, thank you so much for your time. I'm sure we have so much more to add on. We will certainly try to get you back onto another show. We are running out of time for this half of the show. Listeners, we are going into a short break. Sister Aleha, once again, our heartfelt gratitude to you for taking the time out to join us today. And
thank you so
listeners,
much.
please come back straight after this short break. Thank you so much, Sister Aleha.
Thank you.
I'm now joined by Lisa Rafati. Lisa is the Transition Sent Nurse Pediatrics for Bedford Hospital NHS Trust. Welcome to you, Lisa.
Hello, Mohammad. Nice to meet you.
And great to have you on board. Lisa, could you tell us a bit about what your work involves, please?
Yes, so my role it's new across the trust, so across Luton and Bedford. I'm the Send and Transition Lead for children up to the age of 18. And it involves me improving the service within the hospitals at Luton and Bedford. So just that we cater better for our SEND children and that we can meet their needs a lot better. This is through resources, this is through further training, and just getting out there the awareness and the understanding for when our patients come into hospital.
Mm-hmm. And how can patients access your services? Is that when they are admitted in hospital only, or?
Yeah, so this is my role is more to assist when you come into hospital with your child or young person, that myself and my team are there to support your child, young person, and you as a family. Even if you're visiting for an outpatient appointment within the trust, that could be anywhere from an X-ray appointment to a dental appointment, that we are there to come and support if needed and make any reasonable adjustments.
And talking of those reasonable adjustments, what kind of things can young people or families expect as a reasonable adjustment?
So a reasonable adjustment is if there is a sensory need to noise, and we have a spare cubicle or a room that your child and your family can wait in until it is your time for an appointment, we will make that.
Mm-hmm. And also there was a card that somebody showed us earlier today that some young people can acquire. What is that card about, please?
So that card is a support card for our SEN patients, and that card will be given out through, if you are under a consultant at the hospital, you can get that through your consultant, and then you will also be signing a consent form so that you agree to your child being flagged on our hospital system as having a SEN need, and that just alerts us staff and the further multidisciplinary team that your child may need that extra time or extra support.
Brilliant. It sounds like there's so much the hospital is doing to support the needs of young people with special education needs and disabilities, including those with medical conditions. And as a community, what can we do to support the hospital?
Well, really, the community within Luton and Bedford were really lacking with resources for SEN and complex children, and what we really are looking to purchase is what you call a safe space bed. These beds are fully padded and just a safe space for children with additional needs, complex needs. So once they come into hospital, they're in a safe place where we can give them the holistic treatment that they need. So to purchase one of these, they are a very expensive bed to buy. So I will just be looking to do some fundraising this year within the community to hopefully raise some money to put towards one of these beds.
Brilliant. So listeners, if you are able to contribute towards this safe space bed, you can get in touch with us via the radio, or if you know me personally, chances are you might have my contact details either through my local networks, including the cricket club, and we can certainly try and fundraise. And I'm sure at the cricket club we will do our best to be able to support the hospital. The hospital is there for us as and when we need it, and I think it's equally right that we also rise to the challenge when the hospital has its own hour of need. And so we will definitely do our best to fully support you, Lisa.
Thank you so much for listening to me. This is a real passion of mine, and to be able to meet the needs of our children and young people.
Absolutely.
Is my main.
And Lisa, before I let you go, how was the event for you today, the sensational event here at Wigmore Church?
Oh, it was absolutely amazing to meet not just other people trying to help the community, but then just the parents themselves and even the children that came along and the young people, and just really, you know, communicating what we can do as a trust, or then feeding back to us what we can do to improve our service. Absolutely amazing.
Brilliant. Thank you so much for your time, Lisa, and best of luck with getting all the funds you need for the safe space bed.
Thank you.
So I now have a young person with me who has lived experience of autism. Assalamu alaikum and welcome to you.
Wa alaikum salam.
And thank you so much for coming on to the show with us. Tell us a bit about yourself and your condition, please.
So growing up being an autistic child, I remember during my school years, some of my teachers as well as families, they assumed I was possessed. There was something wrong with me. I wasn't the same as any other children out there. But like, you know, it actually affected my mum and my dad's mental health, thinking there's something wrong with me. People assumed, oh, she must have been possessed by black magic. But my family worker, she came here to support my parents, stating that there is nothing wrong with your daughter. We will go through this and we will get her diagnosed to see if there's anything wrong with her. And it turns out I'm autistic, and I just had different needs, and I was dysregulated at the time as a child because I didn't get the support I deserved. But once I got the support, I went through school and I did get the support I need. But there were some disadvantages. I was getting severely bullied whilst facing bullying from a bunch of children, and also some teachers as well, who didn't have that understanding of autism. They thought I was crazy and I was just dysregulated in general. And thinking about it, it wasn't easy. I was wondering, did I deserve to go through this? Why am I not like any other children out there? And I used to think to myself that, why am I not smart like other children? Why am I so emotional? Like, this child doesn't cry that much, but why am I crying a lot? But this turns out that, you know, I was just a sensitive kid who just handles her emotions differently. I'm not like any other neurotypical child. And going through this, yes, being autistic, it does affect you sometimes. But do you know what it is? It actually makes you mentally strong. It teaches you to push through life, and it can make you successful in many ways. It can make you a strong, confident, funny, humorous. People will look up to you, and you can make friends with the right people. And as someone who's gone through this, I have struggled with friendship, which is not easy. And if you think about it, if a girl like me has gone through hardship and can push through life, I have a feeling that anyone can go through this, like anyone can push through and become strong mentally. That's what I believe in. And remember, anyone out there, boys and girls who are autistic, please, and I say this from the bottom of my heart, do not care what people think. People will always be trash talking. I just want you to be like mentally strong, be yourselves, and the right people will love you for who you are, and you will get the right support you deserve.
Absolutely. That is such a wonderful way of summing that up. Thank you so much for sharing your personal story with us and with our listeners, and also for your amazing advice to other people.
Thank you.
Thank you, and it is highly appreciated. So, listeners, you have been listening to Sun in the Community with me, Hafiz Muhammad Umar, and in today's show, we started off by listening to Lucy Toghill, who is the education manager at Tourettes Action. And if you missed the first half of the show, please do go back and listen to Lucy's powerful advice around Tourettes and the advice her services offer to people around the country. And then to the second part, we heard from Sister Aleha Muktadir about the significance of getting a diagnosis from a very young age. She is a director of a local nursery, First Step Nursery here in Luton, and an early years specialist. So that was an incredibly amazing interview. And then we heard from Lisa, who is Lisa Rafferty, who is a special education needs and disabilities specialist nurse at Luton and Bedford hospitals, and she put out a very strong appeal for the funds they are wanting to raise to buy a safe space bed for the benefit of our children when they're in hospital. And then finally we heard from a young amazing sister who shared her experiences of living with autism as a young person, how that's misunderstood within our communities, and what her challenges were growing up as a young person, and how she's been able to overcome those barriers to become a very fine educated member of the local community. She now volunteers her time to the Equality Primary Care Network here in Luton, as well as speaking at local events to inspire more young people. It's been an absolute pleasure having all of you listeners with us once again today. Do take care of yourselves, and please tune in next week where we will be learning more about opportunities for disability rugby. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.